Good morning and welcome to Good Morning Sri Lanka. It's the 30th of November. It is a Friday, folks. The final day of the 11th month of this year, 2013. And starting tomorrow, let me just get it out there so you guys know where to find us. Sri Lanka's #1 hit music station, Yes 101, will be broadcasting live from Park Street. So we hope to see you guys there. You won't miss us. There's a lovely studio and lights all around the place. So that's starting tomorrow, the 1st of December. Before we get to our guest for today, for our discussion, just some interesting stories I'd like to share with you. And this is actually a sad story regarding a 407-pound woman who was denied boarding on 3 flights on her way back to the United States. Her name is Vilma Soltis, 56 years old, who flew to Hungary with her husband to take an annual vacation to a home that they owned. And on her way back to the United States, she has been denied to board 3 flights. And because of this, she died of kidney failure, which, according to the lawyer, would have been preventable if the airline just took on the responsibility. Let me give you a quick look at the story. The couple flew from New York City to Budapest by way of Amsterdam on a very popular Dutch airlines. She had one leg, got on the flight with the help of an airlift, and used a seatbelt extender when seated. Then they were asked by the airline to inform them when they are coming back to the U.S. so they can make necessary arrangement, which they, of course, have given the airline the complete details as to their requirements and the date of their departure back to the U.S. When the time came for them to board that flight, October 15, they were told that they can no longer be able to be taken in the flight because of some limitations that the aircraft has, and they were told to drive to Prague to board a much bigger airline. And to their surprise, when they got there, they were also told that they can also not board the plane. And because of this, after 2 days later, Vilma has suffered from the infection and sadly has died. Now there is a major lawsuit that the husband has filed against this very popular Dutch airline. Now let's go into what could be the biggest uprising, as if we could refer to it. That will happen starting on the 14th of February. That's Valentine's Day. We spoke about this yesterday. It's called 1 Billion Rising, and it refers to the staggering statistics that 1 in 3 women on the planet will be beaten or raped during her lifetime. And this adds up to more than 1 billion women and girls. And in response to this, the 1 Billion Rising campaign has kicked off also in the country, and this will happen in a lot of countries around the world, and the main event will start on the 14th of February. And in line with that, and the initial start of the 1 Billion Rising campaign in the country is also in line with the Forum on Violence Against Women. We have with us someone very special, but before we get to that discussion, he's actually a familiar face that you might see on MTV Sports. But before we get to that, we need to take a very short break. We'll be back. Good morning and welcome back to Good Morning Sri Lanka. It is the 30th of November, and like what I mentioned earlier, we have with us inside the studio quite familiar face on MTV Sports. We have with us Mr. Hans Bilimoria. Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
And of course, he's represented the Grassrooted Trust, and they may not be how can we say it is like part per se of the Forum on Violence Against Women, but the issues that you deal with the Grassrooted Trust is part of what is.
Oh yes, so we work with issues around violence, and we work a lot with men because unfortunately men are most often the perpetrators of the violence. So yeah, you know.
Oh, it is interesting because yesterday's discussion we had with us, of course, another gentleman who also believed that to have a full discussion on violence against women, to know the causes and the ways to stop it, you have to talk to the perpetrators. And sadly, what was one of the observations that they don't know. A lot of people in the country think that it's a given, it's a birthright.
Of course, of course.
In a patriarchal society.
We are patriarchal, and unless if we're to address violence, unless we address the inherent patriarchy of Sri Lanka, we're not going to get anywhere. And that has to go beyond addressing blue and pink and those kinds of banal issues. What we need to do is talk about why men believe that they have the right to behave in this way towards women. And until we hit that, or until we try to unpack that, I don't think we're going to get anywhere.
Okay, if you don't mind, like telling us your journey to bring you in such in this stage that you of where you of your belief and what made you come to this, like to this kind of fighting for this cause, being born and being surrounded and raised in a country where the men feel that they are entitled. But
yeah, I think it begins at home. It begins with the family. I mean, I was one of 6 kids, and to be frank, the boys always had it better than the girls. Right down to, I mean, I come from a family that you would think is forward-thinking, westernized, and all those other buzzwords that they might use. But the boys were always given the largest piece of chicken. You know what I mean? I mean, just little things like that. So it begins at home, and not everybody thinks that this is something wrong. You know, it's natural. Boys are preeminent when it comes to girls. You know, so what can we do there? I mean, it always struck me that until we talk to the men and we try and get them to move towards understanding that we need to go beyond respect and tolerance. There is no conception of equality, and that's what's missing here.
Okay, before you get into that, what was the particular stage of your life that made you realize, hey, this piece of chicken that I have with me should be equal with what my sister is getting?
Yeah, I don't.
Was there like a?
No, there was no epiphany. I mean, it probably came later when I started work, and when we were working with sex workers, and we worked with people living with HIV, and I worked in India for a long time. So the patriarchy there, if you think Sri Lanka is bad, I mean, I worked in communities where girl children were flushed down toilets. I've seen with my own eyes little baby fetuses being partially eaten by pigs. They're put in the piggery. I mean, it's that bad. So it's the male child is what gets the focus. The girls go to school till they're about 8, and then they're at home looking after the male kids, cooking, cleaning. That's because that's what they're going to do. They're going to get married and they're going to keep a home. So why study? You know, so that's the background I come from, and that's where then I realized, well, I used to always say, you know, Sri Lanka is different, Sri Lanka is different, and then when you come to think about it, Sri Lanka is not that different. It's just more subtle, if you know what I mean.
That's a nice way of putting it, more subtle. So then what made you decide, like, this is what I'm going to do, and this is how I'm going to do, and have my voice heard, or hopefully make some change?
Well, we at Grassrooted, what we wanted to do was we wanted to look at how we want to communicate on these issues. Like, we do a lot of workshops around the country. And we've recently done some workshops with the Young Women's Christian Association, and we're working with these girls, and I think they've come, some of them came on the show too. And when you work with the girls, you learn that despite all the empowerment programs that people call them, that are in place, empowerment ends when you go home to your father and your husband and your brother. Despite everything that you've learned over 4 to 5 days, when you go back, you are back in Sri Lankan culture. You are back in Sri Lankan society.
The most famous example given to me was their workshop with women. Everyone's empowered. All of a sudden someone says, oh, it's 5 o'clock, I need to go home, I need to prepare dinner.
Exactly.
Or tea.
Exactly. So empowerment, what does it really mean? So we are of the view that if a woman chooses to be at home, if she chooses to look after her children, then that's empowered too. You know, empowerment doesn't mean going out and working 9 to 5 or 9 to 7, but it's about choice. It's about the ability to choose. It's about the equal right to choose, and that is something that we try to make the girls understand. And the issue that we talk always, the issue that really brings it to the fore is the issue of virginity. So when we talk about virginity and things around virginity, and we start discussing different types of hymens and things like that, to show that virginity cannot be proven, that proving virginity through a hymen test is a misnomer. When we talk about things like that, they feel angry sometimes. you know, and the boys feel upset. The boys come to me and say, sir, now if what you are saying is true, how do I know that the girl I'm going to marry is a virgin? If there is no blood on that white sheet in the morning, how will I know if what you're saying is true? And my reply always is, how does she know you are a virgin?
Which is a very good way of looking at it.
And that and it brings them on that equal footing to know that the hymen proves nothing. You know, and this is where we begin, and this is where we just get them to kind of explore these concepts and see where they've come from. You know, and push those boundaries. And one of the ways we do it is like I was saying to you before, through theatre.
The theatre. Okay, you pushing boundaries is of course, I think from the first how you discuss the virginity and all is really pushing it, because a lot of people will rather not talk about that. Okay, when you get into, say, the atmosphere of now telling the story, you have the girls and the boys together. What's your first reaction once you start desensitizing them? Like, you know, throwing those terms that they normally think is too vulgar or too sexually charged. And now you're putting them on equal footing. That not because you're a guy you're allowed to say this, and not because you're a girl it's something that you should never speak of, because it degrades you or makes you of a different class.
Well, in terms of the workshops, we do them mostly in Sinhala and Tamil, in provincial and rural communities. What we talk about is using the right language, because these kids sometimes, in order to talk about sex, in order to talk about these issues, they don't have the vocabulary. So what we need to do is give them the vocabulary, the scientific terms, and say that it is okay to use these words, because most of these words have a root in Sanskrit. So it's okay to use these words. They actually sound nice. We get them to repeat it, you know, and we get them to sing it so that they feel comfortable with these words. And then it is not the profanity, it is not the vulgar word which makes them nervous and giggle, and you know, so that's the first thing. We give them the vocabulary, and then we tell them, okay, now let's discuss it. And then we bring out the inherent patriarchy that is underlying, and the way the boys talk, you know, they say things like, all we need to do is, if we do anything, just have a shower. The girls need to go back and get sewn up, you know, so those kinds of ideas, then we take that and we deconstruct them and say, no, that's not the way it works. This is actually the scientific principle behind this. And then we slowly bring them along that journey. But it's not easy. And a workshop is not a half a day. You need 4 to 5 days with these kids. And where they begin and where they end,
it's also told a different story.
It's a different story.
Yeah, we'll learn more about those stories when we come back. We just first need to take a very short break. More of GMSL.